Okay, we're going to use 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18 to fully support this reality equation model. But before we do, I want you to know that we are living in a material world. That material world requires a choice. That is what this fifth dimensional field of perception is. This fifth dimensional field of perception is taking place within your consciousness. The observer is the one that forms his dimension quality or his dimension reality model. Whether he's going to either experience the life-giving potentials of the spirit as reflected in the environmental condition, or whether he's going to receive the debilitating limits of the flesh material illusion, which is also reflected in the environmental condition. So within the environmental condition, you find two reflections, two manifestations. In other words, the red or the blue pill. Now the red is going to represent the death because it represents the blood, which represents the flesh, which represents the carnal, which represents the material, which represents the carbon atom, which represents the 666, which represents the void. And then the blue is going to represent the water, which represents the life, which represents the word, which represents the truth, which represents Jesus Christ that is poured out upon all flesh. We're going to see that he is existent within the conditional environment that is surrounding us. He is the creator of this material world. It's not that the material world itself is bad. It's just that when you only are bound within the material consciousness and you're not experiencing the spirit sight. So if you are bound only in the material illusion, that's when you begin to experience the debilitating spiritual repercussions of non-progressive growth. So now we see that this equation is dependent upon your perception or your perception of the environmental condition and what you choose to see out of it. So now your reality is now being influenced by the environmental condition in which you yourself are existing in. So now let's say this, our environmental condition is under control, right? And that's the fractal reality equational model that I'm showing you that we're going to see manifest into 3D here, and it's going to blow you away. But if we've been under control because they have divided the knowledge, and of course we know all about the left and the right brain division now, and of course we're seeing everything through these material eyes based upon the conditional environment of the material education, which is devoid of the spiritual information. So now what does that tell you? It tells you that the potential for the reality model is to manifest upon the left brain route. The left brain route now is only viewing the material limits in the environmental condition, which is what we see expressed here as it's controlled from the Genesis event, which is going to be the temptation, which has now created the material illusion, which now manifests itself as the bands of Orion, which now represents the four cardinal points of control, or the four cardinal points of compass, or the four winds of change, or the four angels out of the rivers of Euphrates, which I told you were really representatives of these four rivers of change, which are now the wisdom, which is the very same wisdom that the serpent, the light bearer, the wisdom bringer, the knowledge giver brought in the garden. So the apple is symbolic of the temptation of the material illusion, which was accepted over the spiritual potential, which was to be revealed if you were to experience the leading of the spirit and instead of experience the debilitating aspects of the material illusion. So we find out that the path of the spirit has been somewhat obstructed by the deceiver in the ages past. But I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter. When we see this four-dimensional cube manifest into 3D, you're going to find out that it has 6 sides. When you see what's in these 6 sides, it's going to blow you away. It's our way out. It's our way out into that 7th dimensional field of perception, which is what we would commonly call heaven from our point of view. So now mankind has the choice, which is once again represented of this 5th dimensional residency. You can either see the world in a material way, bringing death and limits and constraints, or you can see the world in a spiritual way, bringing the potentials of life. I'll be back.